Muchas gracias.
Nada.
We've seen you in such different directors' works. As a French guy, my first contact with you, of course, is Jean-Jacques Hano. And
my first contact with the cinema was with Jean-Jacques Hano.
And it's such a marvelous records. What's the profound difference between Jean-Jacques Hano or Nicolas Winding Refn and Guillermo del Toro, who is, I don't know if you're the alter ego of Guillermo or something like that.
You know, without trying to sound immodest, I actually do think that there's, you know, the word alter ego kind of fits with Guillermo. Also with Jean-Jacques, strangely enough. The two guys that see me differently than anyone else in the world sees me are Jean-Jacques Hano and Guillermo del Toro, because the roles that I've played in 8 movies for those two guys were the closest to my real skill set than of anything I've ever done. Jean-Jacques was the first to recognize if I was going to use him again and again and again, it would be exactly like this, and then he has. And Guillermo is the same.
I will visit you now. I'm visiting you as Dr. Perlman to make the psychological analysis of Guillermo del Toro. Do you think he is still a child?
Yes. And I think that he's somebody who's preserved his inner child for enormous positive benefit. And I think that the child that he was protecting himself very much like the child in Pan's Labyrinth does, against a world that he found overwhelming, sometimes hard to rationalize, hard to compartmentalize, hard to process. So he built a world for himself of fantasy, which he escaped into, which gave him a frame of reference. And it was such a powerful force in his development as a full rich human being, that's his touchstone. That's what he keeps going back to. So we always see the 12-year-old, the 8 to 12-year-old Guillermo in every movie that he does, especially in Pacific Rim.
Especially, okay.
Oh yeah. I think he was drawing these kaiju and these robots when he was 8. And now he's finally got somebody to write a $200 million check to make the movie. That's the only difference.
And do you think he is a poet?
Totally. Yeah, I think he exists on a level that's purely metaphoric, which is what poetry is. It's a metaphor it's a sublime. The better the poet, the more sublime the metaphor is to the human condition. And in fact, to me, the only thing that matters in our culture is how it relates back to the human condition, which is why I usually hate these movies. I never see big studio summer movies because they're usually one-dimensional. They usually don't have any moral compass whatsoever, and they have very little to do with, they're just adventures. They have very little to do with the human condition. Whereas Pacific Rim, the magic of this movie is that it keeps going back to this story that is so fundamentally, you know, makes you examine who you are and how we got to where we are and what we have to do to preserve what we are. So we have to start making differences as what's bullshit and what's really important. Countries are bullshit. Politics is bullshit. All of us coming together to create one world and preserve one world, that's where we're going. And that's what this movie is a kind of a harbinger for.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Psychology 101, baby.